What I'm about to share with you in today's video is a cautionary tale about the utility companies here in Italy and how, like in many other countries around the world, they can get things so wrong. But I'm not just going to share all the negative stuff and stress that I've been dealing with over the past year and a bit. I'm also going to share with you the things that have actually helped in this situation, just in case you are in a similar position and you don't know what to do. There is actually somebody who can really be of great use to you that you may not even know about. So let's begin this tale, shall we? Let's take it back to 2022 when I first moved to Palermo from Salerno. Now, the apartment that I moved into had a gas meter, but it had been disconnected because the apartment had been empty for some time. So, of course, we set the gas supply back up, they reactivated the supply, and we decided to go with a company called ARERA. Now, this is one of the major utility companies here in Italy. However, it isn't a company that is completely squeaky clean. It doesn't have the best of reputations, and back in 2022 it was being investigated for kind of the cost and charges they were applying to customers for the use of gas and electricity. And then just last month, the CEO of ARERA was arrested on suspicion of corruption charges linked to a previous role he had to do with the ports in Liguria. So, when you have the head of a company with the mind of a corrupt individual, I think it says a lot about the quality of the company itself. But that said, let's take it back to my story. So we activated the supply and we were giving meter readings through the app as we were told to do. Now, on one particular month, we submitted the meter reading maybe 1 or 2 days late. Totally our fault, we accept it. Except on the back of that 1 or 2 day delay, we received a bill that said we had used 1,000 units of gas in 1 day. This, of course, is absolutely ludicrous. I don't live in Buckingham Palace. So when we received this bill, we decided to go again and check the meter reading on the display to see what had happened. And lo and behold, at that point, we realised there was a problem with the display on our meter. So the company who manages the meter were called out to replace the display, and we believed at that point that would be the end of it. However, ARERA were adamant that we had indeed used 1,000 units of gas in 1 day, which meant that we had a bill of 4,800 euros that they were telling us we needed to pay. Now, of course, we began the dispute and we began the kind of complaints process because it's ridiculous. Our average bills were 25 to 30 euros per month. So it's incredible that you can suddenly tell us that we need to pay you 4,800 euros. So for all of 2023, we have gone through this dispute process. Every time they came back and told us, no, you have to pay it, we would redispute it. And it was kind of this repetitive action for all of 2023. And then we had a really absurd thing happen. ARERA sent us a check for 4,000 euros. I just want to repeat this because it's the most absurd thing that I think I've ever experienced. ARERA, the company that are telling us that we owe them 4,800 euros, sent us a check for 4,000 euros. I mean, what? So we had this check. So we paid the check back to ARERA, but they still told us there was this 800 euro balance. So of course, the contest continued and continued until the beginning point of this year when it kind of reached its head and they said, if you don't pay this 800 euros, we are going to disconnect your gas supply. Now, I'm sorry, but there was absolutely no way that I was ever going to pay this phantom amount of 800 euros when you only had to look at the gas bills that we were continuing to pay in this period of 25 to 30 euros. It makes absolutely no sense. So I was a bit stressed at this point, naturally, of course. It was a situation that was absolutely nothing to do with us. We were submitting our meter readings on time now. That one moment where we made a mistake really kind of shook us up a bit. We were paying our bills every single month. We are responsible people. We are good citizens. And here we were dealing with the threat of gas disconnection. So I decided to have a little look at what we could do. Now, I know in the UK there is a company called Ofgem. They are an independent body who are designed to protect the rights of citizens, of users, of people who use the energy services. And essentially, I was like, there must be something like this here in Italy. Now, the default position for a lot of Italians is to get a lawyer. When something like this happens, they're like, let's get legal advice. But legal advice costs money, and sometimes I think that should be the last resort. It's not necessarily always the very first thing that you should opt to do. So with that in mind, I decided to have a look online to see if there was an equivalent company here in Italy to Ofgem, which is back in the UK. And lo and behold, I found one. ARERA is the company who is the equivalent of Ofgem. They are an independent body who work to protect the rights of users and people who have the services of different utility companies here in Italy. And they have been an absolute lifesaver. So if you are struggling with your energy supplier, you are having some problems, they are not resolving your complaints, this is the company that I recommend you go to. Their services are completely free. Now, they're not the best at answering the telephone, but let's be honest, this is Italy. However, they do respond to emails, which is the way that we have contacted them. And what they do is they arrange a conciliation service, all completely free. It's an online meeting where they will be present as well as the energy supplier, and you talk about the problems and you try to arrive at a resolution. And we had this meeting a couple of weeks ago. The very first time, Iran couldn't hide behind excuses and emails. They had to actually face us in presence and explain what had happened. And lo and behold, they were like, maybe there's a problem. Maybe, no shit, really? And essentially, of course, it wasn't their fault. They decided to place the blame on the company who managed the meter. So the company who managed the meter could not make it to that particular meeting. So we have yet another meeting scheduled for later this month where they too will be present. But essentially, the meter we have automatically gives readings, as well as the fact that we have to provide readings. And somewhere along the line, we've had a recent bill come in where, again, they have told us that we've used 1,000 units of gas in a day, which of course is completely untrue. And we're having a repeat situation again where they're telling us that we have 2,000 euros or more now to pay. Again, it's incredible. So clearly there is an error somewhere, and they believe that it's to do with the meter, and so the responsibility they are placing at the feet of the meter company. So the saga continues to rumble on, but never have arrived at this point had it not been for their support, because Iran just kept fobbing us off. They didn't want to take responsibility. They were just adamant that we had to pay this money. So this is the situation we're in at the moment. I decided that I didn't want to have any more gas in this house. I was done with the service that we'd received. We are not able to clear this balance at the moment. Like from Iran, they refuse to delete it. They say that we still have to pay it, even though they've admitted there is some kind of an error. So I would just prefer to close the gas down, and then we just make this house fully electric, which we've done. And I want to tell you, our electricity bill is, well, it's cheaper than what we were paying when we were paying gas and electricity together. So, you know, blessings, silver linings in the clouds, as we say. But yeah, it's been a really, really stressful experience. And then just to top things off, they came and turned off the gas this week, because I was like, if the gas is off, they can't send us any more ludicrous bills. They cannot tell us that, you know, we are spending X amount of units in a day. It's done. So they came and turned the gas off, disconnected it. We communicated that it was done. And then they sent somebody else again 2 days later to disconnect what was already disconnected. I mean, really, sometimes I wonder where I live in the world. It's incredible. Nobody speaks to anyone. Like, it's literally like knocking your head against a brick wall. But essentially, this is the position we have arrived in. So I've shared this story with you today just to tell you that these kinds of things can happen here. And I know I'm not alone, because if you look online, there are plenty of other people who have had trouble with their energy suppliers, expats included. And it can feel really stressful, particularly if you don't really know your rights very well in this country. Your ability to speak Italian is a little bit limited. It can be really, really stressful. But I wanted to tell you about this organisation because they have been so wonderful. And I wanted to say that you don't necessarily have to go straight to the lawyer. and endure all of the high expenses that come with it. There are other independent bodies that can help you and maybe resolve the situation without the need to involve a lawyer. Albeit though, I feel like I will be pushing for compensation from this company because they have caused us over a year of stress. We've had to disconnect our gas supply and I've had to buy like new boilers and things to convert our home into a fully electric home. And considering like the gas was only ever used for the oven and also for the heating and hot water, which the heating we don't really use here because our apartment is pretty warm year round, and also the system is just pretty old anyway. But you know, we don't use a lot of gas here. So for me, the conversion to electricity was a bit of a no-brainer. And as I've mentioned, actually turned out to be cheaper, who knew? But it's this, right? Like, you're going to come across situations like this when you live here. And I think you just need to kind of be aware of what's out there to help you. Don't allow it to alarm you. Don't allow it to stress you. Be careful of who you talk to about these situations, because there are many people in expat groups who will maybe misinform you about things or just take the opportunity to also share their own problems. Do your own independent research, and then if you're struggling, then of course seek the advice of other people and see what they can do to help you. But essentially, this is my cautionary tale of a gas company here in Italy. It can happen anywhere in the world. I've read of similar things happening in the UK, but of course it's super stressful, particularly when you have evidence to prove that they are completely wrong. Like, put it this way, when they closed off the gas supply, the reading was 100 and something. Our previous bill said that it was over 1,000 for the units used. I mean, what can you say? So for this, I'm going to be very curious to hear what happens in the next meeting, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video and tell you what happens. But these are the realities of living here. Like, I'm setting your expectations straight, as I do in every single video. Living here is not a breeze. Living here is bloody complicated, and living here tests you in the same way that many other countries do. So I think if you can come here and you're aware of this and you're ready and you know your rights and you don't put up with the bullshit, then I think you will be absolutely fine. I will see you in the next video.